Heart Chicago. Here with Jon Zaghloul, and we're back and ready for today's special guest. He's a World Series champion All-Star pitcher, host of Off the Mound on the Marquee Sports Network. Please welcome Ryan Dempster to the program. Ryan, it's great to have you on. How are you?
Good, John. Good to be with you again.
What do you make of the Cubs season, first off? I want to start there.
Yeah, growth, right? I was happy with the growth. I think, obviously it was a frustrating kind of as you got towards the end of May into June, just battling everything. When you have a lack of depth and you have injuries, then that's where you really start to get exposed. But at the same time, that creates opportunities for some guys to showcase themselves. And as you're in a retool, rebuild mode where you start to kind of see what your future looks like, the more you can have guys come out there and have an opportunity to show themselves. The more that benefits you as a team, as an organization. I thought David and the coaches did a really good job of getting a bunch of young guys ready to play. And I thought what they did down the stretch of September, listen, people talked about the schedule and they said, oh, the schedule's not very tough. Cool. There's still big league teams you're playing against. And they're on the winning side a lot of those ball games. And for a team that looked like they might lose 100 to not even lose 90, I think that says a lot about the coaches and the manager. And then, kind of the future being a little bit bright again here going into the off season. And now you see where you're at. So I thought there was a lot of positive things. I thought there's, obviously some growing pains in there, but that's what you have when you have youth. And it was fun and it was exciting to call the games.
What most contributed to their success, especially in the second half?
Pitching. We get so caught up in the home run and offense and how great that can all be, as we're seeing in the World Series right now with a lot of home runs. But at the end of the day, pitching and defense is what wins you ball games. And Ian Happ winning a Gold Glove, Nico Horner playing exceptional defense, Christopher Morel, the growth that he took as an infielder and outfielder playing multiple positions. So when you do all that and you catch the ball, your pitchers put up good numbers. And what they did down the stretch, guys like Adrian Sampson providing an opportunity to what he might possibly be in the future, Marcus Stroman being healthy and pitching like the guy they expected to get. Young guys like Keegan Thompson and Justin Steele, although Justin didn't, kind of got his innings cap, but, Keegan Thompson be able to go out there, show what he could do as a starter. And then what he did out of the bullpen was pretty electric. So yeah, just the way they pitched, was just really, really impressive. And Tommy Hotovy, Chris Young, Daniel Moskos, these coaches really had them prepared to go out there and do what they did.
How feasible do you think the starting pitching is for next year? I mean, if everything continues like it did at the end of this season, this could be a very strong rotation in 2023.
Yeah, and you need more, right? Because you need more depth. I said good starting rotations always have 7 good starters. Guys are going to miss time, especially the way it is nowadays. Pitchers don't go deep into ball games, so you're going to need guys to be able to provide innings to keep your bullpen strong the whole year. Hopefully, Kyle gets nice and rested, so he's back next year. But if you can go out there and whether that's via a trade acquisition or whether it's free agent market, get some more starting pitching. So that you can allow yourself the opportunity to be able to, make it through the tough stretch when a guy maybe goes on the IL for a little bit or even an extended period of time. But I thought there was a lot of positive signs. And I think guys like Steele and Keegan Thompson, especially those two guys, to me, I feel like they're only going to get better. And so you're going to see even more growth out of them going forward.
Do you have anyone specific in mind, somebody the Cubs should target starting pitching wise?
Jacob deGrom would be great. I mean, I think, that's going to cost you a lot of money, but which is fine if that's on a shorter term deal. I think, we saw this before, right? 2015, the Cubs signed Jon Lester that going into the 2015 season. That's huge because that set the dominoes. Yeah, they didn't win the World Series in 2015. They made the playoffs and obviously go to the NLCS against the Mets. But that was the statement. All right, you go get this starting pitching with the young, developed, minor league baseball players that you had and young guys coming. You need that veteran. You need that guy to be able to do that lockdown number one starter. And Jon was exactly that. So if you go get a guy like deGrom, you automatically turn yourself into a contender next year. But then you're also, looking at the future. Do I have concerns a little bit about health? Yeah, because there's been things, when you throw consistently upper 90s to 100 miles an hour, most doctors and even orthopedists will tell you it's not supposed to move that fast. The arm's not supposed to move like that. So, but I do love, what he brings to the table, obviously, but it's going to be tough to compete with what's out there for him.
How do you feel about the difference today in starting pitching versus when you played? You mentioned pitchers don't go as long as they do. They're throwing harder for longer amounts of time. How do you feel about that, knowing the era in which you pitched in?
Yeah, and you could argue the era in which I pitched in was a century long.
Sure. Oh, yeah, definitely.
I think that's what's the hardest thing is there's been this drastic change, especially the last 5 years, so dramatically. And we focus on third time through the lineup, third time through the lineup, third time through the lineup all the time. But the reality is that we don't teach the guys how to pitch 3 times through the lineup. We kitchen and sink it. First batter comes up, and that pitcher might throw a fastball, then a breaking ball, then all of a sudden a cutter, and then a changeup. Now that hitter's seen 4 pitches, no wonder he can't get him out 3 times through the lineup. So you got to figure out a way to teach these guys. But the reality is that that's not the case right now. And I don't know if it comes back to that, if we get back to that somehow, some way. Sometimes a guy that first time through the lineup is the toughest time he has, and all of a sudden he gets locked in. So, part of me doesn't like it, but I'm not a get off my lawn. Well, when I played guy anyways. So, it's evolved. It's evolved very quickly. Analytics make it evolve, but I still think that you're talking about the best baseball players in the world and the best pitchers in the world. I think they're capable of more. That's all.
Take me through when you pitched. Like, how would you approach a hitter versus maybe how the guys do it today? Like going 3 times through the lineup, then they're out of the game. How would you do it differently and allow you to stay in games longer?
Yeah, I think, the first thing was you're literally trying to get every hitter out with a fastball, a located fastball. If you can locate a fastball, even if the guy knows it's coming, more often than not, you're going to get him out. If it's in the right location, if it's not to his money spot and he's geared up for a fastball, I want him to swing. 2-0, great, awesome, he's geared for a fastball. If I locate and I execute my pitch, you're probably going to be out. Statistics would say, if we're going to use the analytics, they would say that you're going to be out more often than not. But if I don't, then I'm in trouble. And so, it was about getting ahead, establishing your fastball command. So now if I could work through a lineup one time with throwing very limited breaking balls, now all of a sudden, that second time through the lineup, guess what? You come up again to lead off and I get you another fastball again. I still have multiple pitches I can go to. Versus now, I think the mentality is like, get them out right now. And this is all that matters. Get them out, and then we'll just go to somebody in the bullpen. And if they can't do it, we'll go to somebody else the next time through. So I think that's changed a lot as far as, kitchen sinking guys from the get-go. But there are still guys, that's how they pitch. They're going to come after you with their fastball, and then they're going to spin it. So I think that's how it's evolved a lot is, kind of going to the cold zones right away. But when I was coming up, it was like, yeah, cool. I want to throw you a breaking ball, 2 out, nobody on. Why would I do that right now? Because you might come up in the 5th inning with 2 out, 2 guys on base and nobody out. And now you see my best breaking ball against a really good hitter. I'm in trouble.
Kind of sounds like to me a closer mentality for a starting pitcher. And the funny part is you were a closer and a starting pitcher. So what was the difference there for you when you closed games versus started?
Yeah, well, like as a starter, you're warming up. I got my fastball ready. Then I got my breaking ball ready. Then I got my split ready. And then go from there. And then as a closer, it's you get fastball down number 1 and then go to a breaking ball, one of the 2. Whatever one you got, and then when you go in there's no setting anybody up. I think that was probably one of the struggles I had when I was struggling as a closer was I wanted to pitch. You gotta just go right away. If that means you throw 5 sliders in a row, you throw 5 sliders in a row. There's no setting anybody up for anything. They've seen some guys, that are a lot better already in the lineup. So like that's one thing that they've already seen that. They've already seen that kind of stuff. So.
Ryan Dempster here on Sports Talk Chicago. Ryan, what's your take on the new playoff format this year?
That you better be hot coming into the playoffs. Like Dodgers $300 million payroll and all those good players. Cool, awesome. How's your tee times going? It doesn't really matter. New York Yankees get it. Great. You're at it's who's playing hot at the right time. And the Astros were hot all season long. They played well down the stretch. They're in the World Series. The Phillies, they come to Chicago. They get swept by the Cubs. I'm sure there's some sort of meeting somewhere that we don't know about, whether that's on a plane ride, a bus ride, in the locker room. and they turned it around. And all of a sudden, like, they're playing as good as anybody that we've ever seen play all year long.
Do you feel it's fair? Do you like this format? Knowing a lot of these big time teams were eliminated right away, and these other teams who got hot kind of made it all the way.
I don't personally. Just, what's the point of playing 162? Let's just play a 40-game season and go from there. Like, I understand it brings excitement, and more playoff games generate more revenue, and there's a lot of things like that. So there's a lot of money to be made with more playoff games, especially for people who own teams. But at the end of the day, what's the point of the grind of 162 and winning the division if, it doesn't really matter? But that being said, if you're that good to go out there and win all your games and win your division, show up when there's no guarantees. Just because you were the best team all season long, awesome. What'd you do? You got home field advantage, and you better be ready to go. These teams that are getting the playoff, the parity around baseball is becoming more and more evident.
How do you compare today's format to back when you played? Because you've been in many playoff games, World Series. How do you compare that to when you played?
Yeah, I think, there's just that added element, right? The wild card games and stuff like that, versus the division and the one wild card team that got in. So I think, there's a little bit more opportunity. I think it makes the trading deadline a little bit more interesting because teams have to really self-evaluate a little bit better. But yeah, it adds a little excitement to the game. And if that's what we're trying to do, then that's the most important thing, right? For fans of each city to, a team like Philadelphia, who's sitting there in third place in their division all year, and now all of a sudden they're rocking that stadium and firing up the what do they call that thing, the seismic meter that they do the earthquakes with. So I mean, good for Philadelphia for having that opportunity, and for them for making the most of it. I always said, man, you leave that door ajar just a little bit to any team, and they're good baseball players, and they're getting hot at the right time.
Who do you think's going to win the World Series?
Philly.
You do?
Yeah. I just think that they got a couple different things. One, they got really good pitching. They got really good starting pitching. So do the Astros, both ends. I think offensively, they're a juggernaut right now. I think what Bryce Harper's doing is the reason why he got the contract. We're seeing a 16-year-old kid on the cover of Sports Illustrated come to fruition right in front of us. And then they got it. When I talk with guys, there's this thing. It's the it factor, and we don't know what it is. It's just something there. It's within them. And they, a guy like Kyle Schwarber, that's a leader. You listen to all those guys talk. This guy broke a curse in part of a big group and did something that really, let's be honest, nobody's ever done what he did coming back from that injury and then playing in that. He has those guys believing, and Rob Thompson's done a great job with them, and they're just feeling it. And that place is electric. And if they win one more here tonight, this might be over in 5, or if not, I think they win it back in Houston.
Ryan Dempster, still here on Sports Talk Chicago. Ron, a few more questions before we finish up. First off, what's your best playoff memory?
Oh, wow. 2013 World Series, Game 1. As a kid, you have these moments in the backyard or the playground you're playing, and you're thinking things through your head, right? I'm this player. I'm doing this. Oh, it's Game 7 of the World Series. Like, I got to sit there and finish out a win at Fenway Park, Game 1 of the World Series. David Ross is my catcher. Strikeout. The last pitch I ever threw in the big leagues was the strikeout to end Game 1 of the World Series, and then to win the whole thing and go through that whole experience. People talk about it being euphoric. It is. You have almost like an out of body experience. I kind of forgot, honestly, for a while. I went down a trip down memory lane the other night about 1:00 in the morning. I was looking at game logs and play by plays and remembering all these plays in my head because it was an amazing experience, and to win a World Series my last season was, unforgettable.
How's it feel today to know that you went out on top and you left the game being a World Series champion?
Yeah, incredible. I obviously, I miss it a lot. I miss that competition and all of that journey, right? Like, I remember Kobe Bryant talking about the journey being the reward. It's not the destination. It really is. And, when I look at that whole season, of course, I remember the end, and I remember how enjoyable. But it's a distant, foggy memory compared to all the parts throughout the season, the journeys, the team dinners we had, the hanging out in hotel rooms, playing Jake Peavy playing his guitar till 4 a.m. and singing songs, and going walking around Times Square with a couple of guys after a late night in. to team parties at Big Poppy's house afterwards, to my family being there, to taking my son and have him throwing him batting practice, like all those things throughout the way, the journey along the way, to me, it just totally just outkicks the end result. As great as the end result was, it was the journey that really was, kind of the pinnacle of it all.
How special was it, too, to win with David Ross? I mean, now he's the manager of the Cubs. You're broadcasting for the Cubs. You're with the Cubs. I mean, what's it like now that you two are kind of still together after winning that World Series?
Yeah, it's special. I mean, he's a great friend, but I just admire him in a lot of ways. His leadership that year, a lot of people forget he took a couple of foul balls off the head that year, and he actually was at home in Florida, in Tallahassee, in his basement with concussion syndromes. Sal Talamaki was our everyday catcher. And then when Rossi came back, he really took the bull by the horns. He was a great mentor to Salty. He was great. They were a great 1-2 combination. And he just really led our pitching staff in the playoffs. And that's what won us the World Series, was the way we pitched. I mean, we came up with pitching and timely hitting, the big home run by Gomes and what Big Poppy did in the playoffs and all that kind of stuff, Victorino. But David was a true leader, and he wasn't afraid to stand up for what he believed in. If that meant, sitting there having hard conversations, he was comfortable having that. And, the love and admiration he showed for us as teammates. And I was just so proud to be his teammate that year and to see not only that lead into now coming to the Cubs and then being a part of being such a great leader for that team. And then now being a leader at the ultimate height of being the manager for a club, and hopefully see him, doing the very same thing, raising a trophy on the north side as the manager would be pretty special.
What's the funniest moment you two have shared?
Can't talk about that right here. There's been a lot of them. It's been pretty unbelievable.
All right.
Yeah, I'd have to say a late night karaoke in my basement. That's a go-to every time.
Any specific song requests, or what do you guys sing?
Yeah, when he does "It Takes Two" by Run DMC, he nails it. I mean, he's got good range because he can go from there and he'll throw down like some Blake Shelton slightly after, or he can sing. The guy can sing. I'll say that.
Ryan, before we finish up today, last question. This one's important. Okay, I did some research. Was there intent when you threw at Ryan Braun in 2009? MLB said no, but I'm asking you personally.
Wow, how about that? Which time? You mean the one at Wrigley Field?
Yeah, the one at Wrigley.
Yeah, I full on meant to hit him. See, true story. I'll give you the story because not a lot of people know this. When people wonder what players are going through, right? The day before, earlier in the season, the day before I was pitching in Milwaukee. Okay. You know the story. A lot of people know the story about my daughter Riley, and she was going through a lot of stuff off the field. So I was going through stuff off the field. Well, I had to give a blood transfusion for Riley had a surgery. So the day before my start, I gave a blood transfusion at Lurie's Children's, and then I drove up to Milwaukee and I started against the Brewers. Now, early in the game, it was like the fifth inning, Ryan Braun second at bat. He's leading off the inning, and I kind of wiggle in my glove out there, doing my thing, and I come up to make a pitch to home plate, and he squares around a bunt. Now, it just caught me off guard, and I threw a pitch that went almost right at his head. But it was 83 miles an hour, and it was a fastball. That's what I mean. It caught me off guard. I was like, oh, he's bunting. Like, what? Ryan Braun's never bunted off me in his career. He's never even tried. and he ducked. And they said it hit him. And come to find out, it didn't hit him. It hit his bat. But then later on in the game, in the eighth inning, in the bottom of the eighth inning, I'm losing 3-2. Lou still had me out there. He hits a solo home run off me. And he proceeds to style the home run like big time. Took his way down to first base. Now, if I knew that he knew what I was going through, I might have tackled him, but he doesn't know what I'm going through personally. And it upset me a lot, but at the same time, it's not his job to know that kind of stuff. So I was a little taken aback by it. And I think it was his response to what he felt like was being thrown at, but also read the room. I threw 83. It wasn't thrown at you. Like it was literally and it didn't hit you. But, okay. So the next day, Trevor Hoffman grabs me and he's like, hey, I talked to Bronny about that. And I told him that's not how we do things, blah, blah, blah. So I'm a pretty approachable guy, John. You know that.
Of course.
And I'm like, why doesn't he come say something to me? Or let's talk about this. And I can just let him know how I was feeling about it all and that I wasn't throwing at him. I'm not a headhunter. Never have been, I don't think anyways. So now he tells Micah Hoffbauer, who was our first baseman, he gets to first base that next day and he says, hey, tell Demp my bad. That sorry about that. Won't happen again. So now I'm mad because I'm like, you can't even talk to me. Like, come on, man. Like, come over and say something. You need to tell my first baseman. So now, pan ahead years later, he comes up and pinch hits. That was a pinch hit appearance at Wrigley. And we're like winning. It's a close ball game. And he comes up in the first pitch. I just roasted him right in the ribs. But the best part was I told Micah Hoffpower, I said, hey, whenever Bronny gets to first base, tell him Demp said, my bad. That won't happen again. So now he gets to first base, and I look over there out of the corner of my eye, and I see Hoffpower walk over there and go, hey, man, Demp said his bad. Won't happen again. And it was like he just shook his head like, all right, you got me, So, yeah, they can go ahead, send me my suspension. I'll take a 5-day paid vacation. Let's do it. Yeah. There you go.
Wow.
Yeah.
Never heard that story before. That is
a lot of backstory.
But
there you got it. Yeah.
I appreciate you taking the time, Brian. Always great to have you on. Great stories, great insight, and looking forward to the next time we chat as well.
You bet, John. Great to be with you.